Have you ever caught yourself giving so much to a man that you start to wonder, what about me? You bend, you compromise, you forgive, and still something feels off. The truth is, love should never come at the cost of your dignity. And today, I'm going to share with you the 5 things you should never do for a man, because the moment you do, you risk losing not just him, but yourself. When you care deeply for someone, it's easy to get swept up in the idea of love and the desire to make the relationship work at all costs. But one of the biggest mistakes you can ever make in a relationship is losing your identity for a man. It may sound noble in the moment, it may even feel like you are giving love in its purest form, but the truth is, when you abandon who you are just to keep someone else happy, you are planting the seeds of resentment, disappointment, and imbalance. Your identity is made up of your passions, your values, your dreams, and the things that make you feel alive. The very things that drew him to you in the first place. When you start erasing those pieces of yourself, you're not only doing yourself a disservice, you're also taking away the very spark that made you unique in his eyes. So many women believe that in order to keep a man, they must mold themselves into whatever he needs. If he doesn't like a certain hobby, they give it up. If he prefers a certain version of them, they play the role. If he has opinions about what their life should look like, they abandon their own plans. And slowly, without realizing it, they wake up one day and feel like strangers in their own skin. This is dangerous because the moment you let go of your own individuality, you also give away your power. You lose the ability to stand in a relationship as an equal, and instead, you start standing in it as a version of yourself designed to please someone else. That isn't love, that's sacrifice in the wrong direction. A man worth your time will never ask you to stop being yourself. He will be drawn to the fire in your eyes when you talk about something you're passionate about. He will admire the strength in your convictions when you stand up for your values. He will respect the boundaries you set because they reflect the love and respect you have for yourself. And most importantly, he will want to build a life with you, not reshape you into something you're not. The irony is, when you abandon your identity for a man, you don't actually make him love you more. You often make him respect you less. People are magnetized by authenticity, and when authenticity disappears, attraction slowly fades with it. Think about it this way: if you stop doing the things that make you feel fulfilled, what version of you shows up in the relationship? Not the vibrant, confident, passionate version, but the watered-down version that's constantly seeking approval. That's not who he fell for, and deep down, you'll know it's not who you really are. Over time, that will create tension, because no matter how much you give, it will never feel like enough if it costs you your true self. The man who is right for you will want to walk alongside you, not walk in front of you while you erase parts of yourself just to keep up. Your dreams matter, your individuality matters, and your identity is not something you should ever sacrifice in the name of keeping a man. Love should add to your life, not subtract from it. The most beautiful relationships are built when two people show up as their fullest selves, not when one person gives up their identity to be accepted. If you feel the pressure to change who you are, remind yourself that the right person will never require you to shrink. They will encourage you to expand. Your identity is your foundation, and without it, no relationship can truly stand. When you fall in love, it's natural to want to give a man your attention, your care, and your energy. But one of the most common mistakes women make in relationships is making a man their entire world. It often starts in subtle ways. You cancel plans with friends just to be available for him. You put your goals on the back burner because his needs seem more urgent. You start to structure your schedule around his, leaving little space for your own independence. It doesn't feel dangerous in the beginning because love itself is consuming and exciting, but over time this pattern creates an unhealthy imbalance where your happiness depends solely on him. That kind of dynamic suffocates both you and the relationship. A healthy relationship should complement your life, not consume it. The moment your life revolves entirely around one person, you strip yourself of balance, independence, and self-respect. The truth is, no matter how much you love someone, they should never be the center of your universe. You had a life before him filled with friends, dreams, passions, and responsibilities. That life is part of what made you attractive to him in the first place. When you give all of that up, you're not only abandoning yourself, but you're also creating pressure for him to fill every role in your world, something no one can successfully do. Men are often drawn to women who have a strong sense of self. They admire women who have their own ambitions, who nurture friendships, who invest in their passions, and who know how to stand on their own 2 feet. When you give that up, you lose the very qualities that created the spark between you. Worse, you send a message that your entire happiness depends on him, and over time, that pressure can become overwhelming. Instead of deepening the bond, it creates distance, because attraction thrives when both partners continue to grow individually while sharing a life together. Imagine being with someone who has no focus outside of you. At first, it might feel flattering, but eventually it becomes draining. That's exactly what happens when you make a man your whole world. You unintentionally drain the relationship of oxygen because you stop bringing fresh energy into it. Relationships thrive when both partners continue to evolve and bring new experiences, perspectives, and passions into the connection. If you're only focused on him, you stop feeding the relationship with your individuality, and it begins to lose its depth. Another danger in making a man your entire world is that it leaves you vulnerable to losing yourself completely if the relationship ever changes or ends. Life is unpredictable, and even the strongest bonds face challenges. If your entire identity is tied to him, the loss becomes not just about heartbreak, but about not knowing who you are anymore. That's why it's so important to nurture your own life outside of the relationship. Your independence, your dreams, and your support systems act as anchors that keep you grounded no matter what happens. The most magnetic relationships are those where both people stand as whole individuals, not halves trying to complete each other. When you maintain your friendships, chase your goals, and live your passions, you don't just make your life richer, you make the relationship stronger. You bring in energy, excitement, and growth that keep love alive. When he sees you thriving in your own world, he doesn't feel burdened by being your everything. Instead, he feels inspired to match your energy and contribute to the life you're already building. So never fall into the trap of making a man your entire world. You are a whole person with a life that matters deeply outside of the relationship. When you protect that truth, you keep your power, your independence, and your sense of self intact, and those qualities are exactly what make love last. Respect is the foundation of every healthy relationship, and without it, love cannot survive for long. One of the most important things you should never do for a man is tolerate disrespect. It might begin with something small, like dismissive comments or neglecting your feelings, and it may seem harmless at first, but those small moments set the tone for how you will continue to be treated. When you ignore those early signs of disrespect, you unconsciously teach him that it's acceptable to treat you that way, and over time, those little moments turn into patterns that erode the love and trust between you. Disrespect can show up in many forms. Sometimes it's obvious, like insults, name-calling, or blatant disregard for your boundaries. Other times it's subtle, like when he ignores your opinion, fails to listen when you speak, or continuously puts his priorities above yours without considering your feelings. Even emotional neglect is a form of disrespect because it sends a clear message that your needs and your voice don't matter. No matter how it presents itself, when you accept disrespect in any form, you are telling yourself and him that you don't deserve better, and that belief slowly chips away at your self-worth. The truth is, you set the standard for how people treat you. If you allow a man to continually disregard your feelings, he will have no reason to change. On the other hand, when you draw clear boundaries and communicate what is and isn't acceptable, you show him that you respect yourself and you demand the same in return. Respect is not just about how someone treats you in private. It's also about how they speak about you to others, how they show up for you when you need them, and how consistently they honor their words with their actions. A man who truly values you will never want to put you in a position where you feel small or unworthy. Many women fall into the trap of making excuses for disrespectful behavior. They tell themselves he is just stressed, or that he doesn't mean it, or that if they just give more love and patience, he will eventually change. But the danger in this mindset is that it allows the cycle to continue. Disrespect that goes unchecked only grows stronger, and before long, you find yourself in a relationship where you're constantly walking on eggshells, trying not to upset him, while your own needs are left unmet. Love should not require you to silence your voice or shrink yourself to avoid conflict. The right man will recognize your worth and treat you with the level of respect you deserve. He will listen when you speak, not just to respond, but to truly understand. He will value your feelings even when he disagrees. He will make an effort to communicate honestly, and he will show consistency in his actions because he knows trust is built through respect. A man who genuinely loves you will see you as his equal, not someone to control, dismiss, or take for granted. At the heart of every fulfilling relationship is mutual respect, because respect creates safety, trust, and connection. Without it, even the strongest attraction will eventually fade. You should never compromise on this, because once you do, you lose yourself in the process. Tolerating disrespect doesn't just hurt you in the present, it also teaches you to lower your standards in the future, and that becomes a cycle that is difficult to break. Protect your dignity, protect your voice, and protect your self-respect, because the man who is truly worthy of you will never ask you to give those things up. One of the most damaging patterns in relationships is when a woman feels she has to chase or overinvest in a man to prove her worth. Chasing may look like constantly reaching out first, rearranging your life to be available to him, or putting in more effort than he does just to keep the connection alive. Overinvesting happens when you give emotionally, physically, and mentally without receiving the same level of commitment in return. At first, it might seem like you're just showing love, being supportive, or proving how much you care. But the truth is, when the energy in a relationship is unbalanced, it creates a dynamic where one person is always pursuing while the other becomes passive. This imbalance eventually destroys attraction and respect. When you chase a man, you communicate that his value is higher than yours, as though he is the prize and you must earn him. But the reality is, a relationship only works when both people see each other as equals. A man who truly values you will invest in you without needing to be convinced. He will make an effort because he wants to, not because you pushed or begged for it. Attraction thrives when there's balance, when both people are leaning in and showing effort. The moment you start doing all the work, the relationship loses its natural rhythm and begins to feel forced. Overinvesting is especially dangerous because it often comes from a place of fear. Fear that if you don't give everything, he will lose interest. Fear that if you don't prove your love, he won't stay. Fear that you're not enough as you are, so you must overcompensate. But acting out of fear never builds healthy love. It only teaches a man that he can give the bare minimum and still have access to your time, energy, and devotion. When you accept crumbs, you make it easy for him to stop giving more, because he knows you'll keep chasing regardless. There's also a psychological effect that happens when you chase someone. People tend to value what they have to work for, and when something comes too easily, they often take it for granted. If you're always the one initiating, planning, compromising, and adjusting, he doesn't have to put in effort, and he won't value the connection as much as he would if he had to meet you halfway. Healthy relationships require mutual pursuit, not one person running after the other. When both people invest equally, respect grows and love has room to deepen. Another danger in overinvesting is the way it impacts your self-esteem. Constantly giving more than you receive eventually leaves you drained, unappreciated, and resentful. You start questioning your worth, wondering why he doesn't return the same energy, and instead of seeing the problem for what it is, a lack of effort on his part, you may start to believe you're not enough. But the truth is, you are more than enough. You're just giving your best to someone who isn't willing to match it. That is not love, that is imbalance. A man who is truly interested will show it in his actions. He will call, he will plan, he will put in effort, and he will make you feel chosen without you having to constantly remind him of your value. You should never be the only one carrying the weight of the relationship, because real love is a partnership. Both people bring effort, energy, and care to the table. When you stop chasing and over-investing, you create space for him to step up and show his intentions. And if he doesn't, that tells you everything you need to know about where his heart truly stands. Never give so much of yourself that you forget your worth, because the right man won't need to be convinced to invest in you. He'll do it naturally. One of the most painful lessons many people learn in relationships is the danger of accepting broken promises repeatedly. Promises are not just words. They are commitments that reflect intention, effort, and respect. When a man makes a promise, he is giving his word, and his ability to follow through is a direct reflection of how much he values you and the relationship. It's natural to forgive once in a while because no one is perfect and life can get in the way. But when broken promises become a consistent pattern, it signals something deeper, a lack of reliability, accountability, and emotional investment. Tolerating this behavior chips away at your trust and slowly erodes the foundation of the relationship. At first, a broken promise may not seem like a big deal. Maybe he said he would call and forgot, or he promised to show up and was late. You might brush it off, telling yourself it was a small mistake, especially if he apologizes. But when these moments begin to repeat, it creates a cycle where you're always waiting for him to come through, and more often than not, you're left disappointed. Over time, this inconsistency sends a message. Your feelings are not a priority, and his word doesn't hold weight. That message doesn't just hurt, it leaves you questioning whether you can rely on him at all. Broken promises don't only affect the trust between two people, they also affect your self-esteem. When you constantly accept excuses and hope he will change, you may begin to internalize the idea that this is all you deserve. You start lowering your expectations, convincing yourself that maybe your standards are too high, or that being patient is the answer. But patience is not the solution to a lack of effort. Waiting for someone to suddenly transform into a reliable partner while ignoring the reality of their actions only keeps you stuck in disappointment. The truth is, consistency is love in action, and if someone cannot show up for you consistently, their words mean very little. It's also important to recognize that repeated broken promises create instability in the relationship. Trust is what allows two people to feel safe with each other. Without it, insecurity takes over. You may find yourself anxious, always wondering whether he will follow through this time or let you down again. That kind of emotional roller coaster is exhausting, and it prevents the relationship from deepening because you're too busy questioning his reliability to feel secure in his love. A healthy partnership requires trust you can lean on, not trust that feels like it could collapse at any moment. When a man respects you and truly values the relationship, he doesn't just make promises, he honors them. He understands that consistency is how love grows and how intimacy is built. He takes responsibility for his words and ensures that his actions align with them. On the other hand, a man who continually breaks promises and hides behind excuses is showing you that he is not ready or willing to meet you at the level you deserve. Forgiving him them repeatedly without change only enables the behavior to continue because he learns there are no real consequences for his lack of follow-through. You should never confuse forgiveness with acceptance of a pattern. Forgiving a mistake is human, but repeatedly excusing the same behavior is settling. If he breaks promises over and over, he is showing you who he is, and it's up to you to decide whether that aligns with the kind of relationship you want. The reality is, a man who wants to keep you in his life will not risk losing your trust by constantly letting you down. He will show up, he will follow through, and he will prove his love through action. You owe it to yourself to demand consistency, because love without reliability is nothing more than words that fade over time. One of the greatest mistakes you can make in a relationship is lowering your standards out of fear of losing a man. Standards are not just arbitrary rules. They are a reflection of your values, your boundaries, and your self-respect. They are what protect you from settling for less than you deserve. Yet many women, when they truly want to hold on to someone, begin to compromise on things that once mattered to them. They accept behavior they would have never tolerated before. They allow their boundaries to be crossed, and they silence their own needs just to keep the peace. It might feel like love in the moment, but in reality, it is fear disguised as sacrifice. That fear whispers that if you hold him accountable or if you demand more, he might walk away, and so you convince yourself that keeping him is better than losing him. But what you end up losing is not him, it's yourself. Lowering your standards is dangerous because it sets the tone for how the relationship will play out. Once you show that you are willing to accept less than you deserve, it becomes easier for him to give you less. For example, if you wanted honesty and consistency, but you excuse lies or broken promises, you send a silent signal that you are willing to tolerate those things. If you wanted respect, but you allow disrespectful behavior without consequence, you communicate that respect is optional. Standards only hold power when you stand by them, and the moment you drop them for fear of losing him, you open the door to a cycle where your needs will always come second. A healthy man, one who truly wants to build something real with you, will rise to meet your standards. He won't be intimidated by them because he sees them not as demands but as expressions of your worth. In fact, men often respect women who are clear about what they want and refuse to accept anything less. It shows strength, self-respect, and confidence, qualities that attract rather than repel. The wrong man, however, will make you feel like your standards are unreasonable, as if expecting respect, honesty, or effort is too much. When you hear those words, you should recognize that he isn't the right man for you, because the right man doesn't make you feel guilty for expecting the bare minimum of what a relationship should be. When you lower your standards, the damage isn't only in how he treats you, it also impacts how you view yourself. You begin to question your worth, telling yourself that maybe you asked for too much, when in reality, you only asked for the kind of love and respect every person deserves. Over time, this chips away at your confidence, making it harder for you to walk away, even when you know deep down that you're not happy. The longer you stay in this cycle, the more you forget what it feels like to be valued, and that can trap you in relationships that drain you instead of fulfill you. Fear of losing him should never be greater than the fear of losing yourself. At the end of the day, it is far better to be alone with your dignity intact than to stay with someone who requires you to shrink, compromise, and accept less than you deserve. Love should never be about diminishing your worth. It should be about amplifying it. When you keep your standards high, you create space for the right man to step into your life, a man who will not only meet those standards but will appreciate you for holding them. The right man will never ask you to lower your standards to keep him. Instead, he will gladly rise to meet them because he knows that someone like you is worth the effort. At the heart of everything we've discussed trust lies one powerful truth. Love should never cost you your self-respect, your identity, or your standards. The right relationship will never demand that you abandon who you are just to keep someone else happy. It will never require you to make a man your entire world, to tolerate disrespect, to do all the chasing, to live with broken promises, or to lower your standards out of fear. A healthy relationship is built on balance, respect, and mutual effort. It's about two people bringing their best selves to the table and growing together, not one person sacrificing themselves to hold things together. When you stand firm in your worth, you naturally attract the kind of love that honors and cherishes you. You don't have to chase it, you don't have to beg for it, and you don't have to compromise who you are to keep it. The right man will see your value clearly, he will respect your boundaries, and he will rise to meet your standards because he knows you are worth it. Protecting your dignity, your independence, and your identity isn't about being difficult, it's about ensuring that the love you allow into your life is real, lasting, and fulfilling. In the end, the things you should never do for a man are really about the things you should always do for yourself. Honor your identity, protect your boundaries, demand respect, expect consistency, and keep your standards high. When you live by these truths, you don't just create stronger relationships, you create a stronger, more confident version of yourself. And that is the kind of woman who never has to chase love, because love naturally finds her and stays.